Welcome. Today we're going to talk about the first two speeches in a debate round. The first speech is called the first affirmative constructive. In this speech, the affirmative team will bring up their case and explain everything that they want to do, at least initially, to support the resolution. It's called the first affirmative construction. Often debaters shorten that and refer to it as the 1AC. The second speech in the debate is the first negative constructive, or 1NC, in which the negative team has the first opportunity to respond in a speech to what the affirmative team has brought up. And in this speech, the negative team should try to address as many of the issues that the affirmative team has brought up, going through their entire case, point by point if possible, and bring up objections and counter-arguments to as many things as possible. Now, what we are about to see is an example of a 1AC based on a resolution about lunch at Beaver County Christian School, followed by a 1NC responding to those arguments. Now, the main thing that's missing in this video is that between each constructive speech there would be a chance for cross-examination in which the team member from the negative team would ask questions of the person who just gave that first affirmative speech. That's not included, but we can see an example of a 1AC followed by a 1NC, and look to see how the 1AC states the resolution, starts with a topicality point, observation 1 on topicality usually, observation 2 stating the harms, hopefully showing how they are inherent and significant, observation 3 containing a plan, which hopefully shows solvency, and observation 4 containing advantages, hopefully showing inherency and significance. After that, in the 1NC, hopefully we can see the negative team responding to these points, seeking to show, at least in some ways, how the 1AC should not deserve, the case brought up in the 1AC should not deserve the judge's vote. Both speeches will end with the speaker arguing that the judge of the debate round should vote against their opponent and for their team, voting either for the affirmative team or the negative team. Let's have a look. Is the judge ready? Is the timer ready? Then I will begin. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary to change the status quo to something better, we must do it. That is why my partner and I on the affirmative team stand resolved that BCCS lunch should be significantly improved. In order to support this resolution, we would like to put forward the following case or plan. In our first observation, we will look at some definitions. We define BCCS as the Beaver County Christian School, located right here in Beaver Falls. We define lunch as the meal eaten between 4th and 5th periods, and we believe that significant improvement means some way that the well-being of students and their ability to learn and their ability to wear better hats should be upheld compared to the way it is in the status quo. In our second observation, we would like to outline the harm or the problem we see with the status quo, namely that children who have not been given enough time to digest food will never be able to digest knowledge. For this reason, we need to change the status quo. But let's look at this problem a little bit more closely. It takes at least an hour for a meal, especially one purchased from a place like Sheetz or pizza from Pizza Joe's. It takes at least an hour for that sort of heavy, greasy food to be fully digested. And it's a scientific fact that people who have not digested greasy food are unable to cope with complicated information, especially about debate theory or about science or English. We believe that this harm is caused directly because of the short amount of time, barely over 30 minutes in some cases, that students currently have to both eat and digest their food. We believe that this creates a significant harm that can be measured in the sleepiness of students during classes 5th and 6th period and in their failing grades as a result. For this reason, we would like to put forward our next observation, the plan. Our agency of change will be the school administration and the board, and our agency of enforcement will be the Beaver County Christian School Administration and teachers. Our mandate is simple. We will extend the Beaver County Christian School lunchtime by 1 hour, especially for the purpose of allowing students who have completed eating their greasy food to go take an hour nap and digest and be refreshed. This brings us to our last observation, advantage. We believe that this will create two advantages. The first is that as a result, uniquely of this plan, students will digest their greasy food and be ready to take on their next class. And we believe that a second advantage will be that by providing the students with better hats, we will lift the morale of the student body in general, creating esprit de corps and making Beaver County Christian School students the happiest, most learned and educated in all the land. For these reasons, I strongly urge you, Judge, to vote for the affirmative team. Vote for digestion. Vote for the children. Thank you. Is the judge ready? Timer. Thank you. Well, the negative team would like to remind the judge that a good affirmative case is much like finding a dog that can speak Norwegian. Extremely rare. And so it is with this affirmative case. We, as the members of the negative team, would like to go through the observations brought up by the affirmative team and show you why this plan would be a disastrous mistake, and that supporting this plan and this resolution would not lead to advantages, but severe disadvantages that would bring our school and our children into grave danger. So, let's review. In the first place, definitions. The affirmative team's definitions are largely acceptable. However, I would like to make a topicality argument connected to their arguments about the importance of funny hats. While we believe that funny hats are important to all school esprit de corps, for students to feel happy, we do not believe that an argument about hats fits within this resolution, and therefore we ask you, Judge, to strike that argument from your notes. It is not topical. Next, we would like to examine their harm, which states that children suffer who cannot digest their food properly. We would like to argue that, in fact, while it is true that some students may fall asleep during fifth period, this is not entirely because of food. Sometimes it turns out students have stayed up too late and are sleepy by the time they come to an afternoon. We would also urge you to consider the vast number of students who stay awake, no matter how much pizza they have just eaten or how late they've stayed up. And we believe that it is important for these students to gather all the information they can for as much of the school day and not lose some of that instructional time to sleep. We believe that the plan would create some problems. First of all, in order to add an hour of lunch to the schedule, we would have to take away an hour of instruction or extend the school day by 1 hour. If you extend it after school, this will mess up sports schedules since many sports teams practice right after school. And if you extend it an hour before, you'll cut into students' sleep, creating the same problem we sought to solve. So for this reason, we believe that this plan will not solve. It lacks solvency, a key stock issue that the affirmative team cannot win in this round. Finally, let's examine their advantage of better digestion creating better sleep, better learning. It is perhaps possible that better digestion aids in learning, but we do not think that the affirmative team has brought up enough scientific evidence to prove a link between digestion and cognition. And we believe that unless the affirmative team is able to bring up scientific evidence proving this point, this advantage should be eliminated as a consideration for this round. Finally, we believe that this plan will create, as we've suggested already, a significant disadvantage. We believe that this disadvantage should be considered in this debate round. First of all, students already have barely enough instructional time during the day to complete all the learning they must do, and so taking away any time would create a more serious problem out of something that might already be a problem. Next, we need to see that this plan would uniquely contribute to this problem if it desires to take a whole hour of instructional time away. That's more than a whole period's worth of time. And the impact of this plan, instead of creating an advantage, would put students further behind in their education. There's no good way to change the schedule, as the affirmative team has said, and in fact, changing the schedule would create significant harms and disadvantages for students. For these reasons, because the affirmative team is not completely topical, because they made a silly hats argument that is not within the resolution, because their harms are not proven scientifically, because their plan and advantage would actually create more disadvantages than advantages, we urge you, Judge, to vote for the negative team and reject this affirmative disaster. Thank you. Wow, so many good points being made here today. Hard to decide who's winning at this point. You can tell me what you think. Negative? Affirmative? Who has the lead? Well, it's only the first two speeches out of 8 in this debate round, so we'll have to find out how this goes later on. For your assignment, you need to come up with your own brief outline for a first affirmative constructive. So, go onto the Google Classroom, look up look at your next assignment, and see if you can fill in the outline with your topicality point, your harms, your plan, being sure to include the agencies of change, enforcement, and funding if necessary, as well as your advantages. Make sure that it covers all 4 stock issues: topicality, significance, inherency, and solvency. And we'll follow up later with these guys and see how this continues. Have fun.